Well, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Friday. Finally made it out here to the weekend. What a long week. It's been a hot one out here in Northern California. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a 1.1 up into the Alaska area. By the way, it is 11:02 a.m. California time here, July 11th, 2025. 7/11/2025. We do have an earthquake swarm going on down across Southern California in a couple different spots. This follows earthquake activity from yesterday. If you guys watched my video here last night, we talked about a number of three-pointers down there, one up along the Parkfield segment of the San Andreas Fault, and also one around the San Jacinto Fault Zone, and also one just off the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. Now, this morning we got a 4.3 earthquake along with a swarm of earthquakes following that four-pointer. Interesting movement here because got a lot at stake here in terms of the amount of time that has passed since we've seen a large earthquake out here along the plate boundary. That is the San Andreas Fault. So looking here at this first swarm where the 4.3 struck, got 62 earthquakes. 62, that's a lot of earthquake activity. It looks like there was a 3.4 about 1 o'clock this morning, and then an hour or so later, almost 2 hours later, a 4.3. These are definitely a big-time swarming going on. It's been quite a while since we've had any decent earthquake swarm down here across this area of the extreme section of the San Andreas Fault here, just around the Brawley seismic zone. That's where that's taken place here. This, along with other swarms in the area and the movement last night, just a good indicator to be prepared for some larger activity out here. We've definitely got the strain building up right now, producing these elevated earthquake events here in Southern California. Here's the other swarm a little bit further up north. That had some activity yesterday and today. Of course, this is the area that's seen a three-pointer yesterday. Some more smaller quake activity there. And then another little separate swarm over there where that three-pointer struck. So the last one at 2.4. A lot of activity in here. And it's in a triangle segment. Kind of, you can cross these right here down to the Brawley seismic zone and up northward. I tell you what, we could be looking at something bigger coming here very, very soon. Now I know there's swarms that occur down here on occasion, right? It's been, I would say it's been, since we've seen a swarm of this nature, probably at least a year of this type of magnitude here in terms of the magnitude count, which is 4.3 and a couple threes, and the multitude accounts out here. 64 earthquakes is a lot of earthquake activity, but when you factor in more swarms around the area, that just increases the chances here that we could be looking at something bigger out here in the Southern California region. I want to show you guys here a little map real quick. Make sure the bells are off, which they are. This is the plate boundary here, right? The San Andreas Fault, certain different segments. Now, up north here, you got the northern section of the San Andreas Fault, which last ruptured back in 1906. So that puts it at 119 years ago. So there's 119 years of built-up strain on it. Really not all that concerned with that yet, although that seems like a lot of time that has passed. The central segment down here, that's going to be this little Parkfield segment northward along the creeping section. That 168 years ago, since we had a decent-sized earthquake out there. 213 years ago since the M7.9 earthquake, the 1857 earthquake here on the portion of the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. Now, the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault extends roughly right here all the way south, including this dark line here. That's the full southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. Now, during the 7.9, 1857, it did not take this section with it. So that is a factor in considering the next big earthquake out here, which could be, with this added length here, up to an 8.1. So it'd be obviously quite a bit more powerful than a 7.9. And this area has not ruptured in over 300 years. So look at all this time period that we got out there. We're living in the future of information and, some scary stuff when it comes to AI and whatnot. It's hard to tell what's real and what's not real. What is real is that the amount of time that has passed out here is very sufficient when it comes to the possibility of seeing a large earthquake anywhere out here along the San Andreas Fault soon. Again, I'm really not too concerned with this area northward, 1906. Yeah, that's definitely a lot of time that has passed, but more so down south here. And we've been getting a lot of elevated activity out here, not only today and yesterday, but over the last year or so. We've seen increasing signs of earthquake activity. In fact, last year we've seen more 4.0 earthquakes and above for the totality of the year for 2024 than at any time since the mid-'80s. So something is definitely brewing out here. Now's a better time than ever to be prepared. We could be one day closer to that big one that is expected to hit out here in the Southern California area. And now, it's just interesting here with this ongoing swarm that we got right around the southern branch here. Stand by. Need to grab me something to drink. It never fails. So hopefully this is still good. It's a soda that was sitting out here for a couple days, but it should be all right. Because this is pretty important. I don't want to be interrupting my speeches here. It is very interesting how it's right around, not off in the ocean here. It's Friday. Getting a little ahead of myself here. But right around that locked area here that hasn't had any rupture in 300 years, folks. It's very interesting how this is taking place right now. So when you just zoom in on these three areas of swarming, that's over 100 earthquakes in the last 24 hours. That's well above an average daily count. Let me tell you, that's a lot of earthquake activity. 2.5 and above is well elevated for this area. Of course, there's a number of the threes from yesterday. 3.1. See this area down there? Wow, they'd actually had 4 earthquakes of magnitude 2.5 and above. The largest so far, a 4.3. And the largest is actually the last large one here. So things are increasing in terms of the magnitude level out here. Got to watch this closely here, folks. I said it here yesterday. Things are on the move out here across Southern California. Got to watch the Parkfield segment up here, right? This is the Parkfield section, right about where this three-pointer struck yesterday, 3.2, is capable of producing an earthquake every 20 to 22 years. There's regular intervals of a 6.0 earthquake being recorded here every 20 to 22 years. Our last one was back in 2004, right? We're well within that time period. But also there's some concern here with the amount of time that is built up here across the area south into the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, that the next 6-pointer here could trigger a bigger earthquake down the line there, which is, obviously quite concerning. Here's just a little article here that was put out from the Wikipedia web page talking about how, 1857, the central portion there of the San Andreas Fault had a decent rupture, but it's that extreme southern section that has not had any rupture in over 300 years. Guess what? The regular interval of earthquake reoccurrence interval of large earthquakes on the San Andreas Fault, or the southern segment, 140 to 160 years. That's why I put this up here. 140 to 160 years. We're well beyond that number. We're well beyond this number. And guess what? We're well past this number as well along the central section. So this whole area right here is potentially overdue. When you integrate the numbers here that the scientists, the geologists, and the folks that know the stuff, right? They have the handy-dandy plaque up on the wall that tells you like it is. They put out 140 to 160 years. And we're well past that, folks, on all segments. Maybe not the San Andreas Fault northern segment. We're still a little bit northward, or we're still south on that. South, I got my directions here. We're still under that number. But down here, tell you what, man, we are ready, I think. I don't want to see it happen, but we're well within that time period, folks. Some more strain earthquakes up north along the Coast Range. This area definitely needs to be watched here today. I think I'm going to reissue my Southern California Earthquake Watch. Had it up here for the majority of the year and last year because of all the 4-pointers that were happening around Bakersfield, Malibu Coast Fault, the Puente Hills Thrust Fault. I mean, all these fault systems here that had not shown any earthquake activity in a long time, we're starting to wake up and show elevated earthquake activity. But I think we're at maximum pressurization out here, where we could be seeing something big going on here across Southern California very soon. There's another stress quake up north there off the San Andreas Fault. Watch this very closely here, folks. I'm telling you. We'll check back on that here before the end of this video. Bay Area pretty quiet, but that's normally the case. It seems like things really start to ramp up right around the Garlock Fault shear zone southward when they do get going. And Northern California is normally quiet, and vice versa. But Southern California on the hot spot right now. Northern California up here, yeah, we still got some threes going on up here across the extreme southern end here of the Cascadia megathrust area. It's pretty much around that triple point boundary called the Mendocino Fault Zone. There's been a number of earthquakes out here in the last 30 days, more so active than normal. 64 earthquakes of some decent magnitudes, including a 4.1. This is the area that had the 7-pointer last year, so you could call this aftershock if you want, but these earthquakes were happening before the 7-pointer, and now they're happening after the 7-pointer. This is just a very dynamic area between three plate boundaries. You got the Juan de Fuca plate here up north, or if you want to be specific, the Gorda plate. It's a smaller plate, a little fraction of the Juan de Fuca plate. The North American plate up north here, that's this land chunk here where the Juan de Fuca plate subducts underneath. And then, of course, you got the Pacific plate here to the south. So it's a Mendocino triple point boundary. Very dynamic area, always seeing a lot of earthquake activity, but we got to watch that southern end of the Cascadia as well. That's been building up some steam here. It looks like we got some earthquake activity from yesterday, right around the Blanco fracture zone, or towards the end of it. It's been quite active out here as well, with a cluster of quakes. Normally when earthquake activity strikes out here, we're looking at, these ridges paint you a little picture here. Further strain down south here towards the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. Right now there's not a whole lot on it, but I guarantee you it's building up some steam and definitely some momentum. And there's a couple earthquakes there from back in June, pretty shallow crustal quakes up there across the Cascadia fold and thrust belt. One up north here as well. And this has been 325 years since the last big one. So yeah, a lot of doom and gloom, but hey, we've been relatively quiet out here. Relatively, speaking as far as large earthquake activity, the last decent sized one was back in 2019, the 6.9 on July 4th, and then one day later, 7.1 there across the ridge crest. That had nothing to do with the San Andreas Fault, specifically, as far as being on it, but it does have everything to do with the San Andreas Fault in terms of accumulation of strain. That's how you get the strain in these fault systems inland, because of the interaction here along the plate boundary. Another 2.4 earthquake coming in here since I've been talking, I believe. I've been doing this update, 1327. Okay, so this looks like it was in the last 25 minutes or so. But I tell you what, watch this area here today, folks. Further up the line, Mount Rainier. Let's see what we got going on here. Still got an earthquake swarm going on, with a total tally here of 412 earthquakes, all roughly within that same area below the summit, about a mile or two, which is indicative there of fluid interaction above the magma chamber. Magma chamber sits about 5 miles or deeper underneath the summit area. Let's go check out the latest information here from the PNSN network on Mount Rainier. We got a lot of smoke here in the valley today from the fires burning up north of me, north of Redding. And man, is it killing me. I was outside for a little bit, but for whatever reason, it's definitely hazardous outside. So I'm probably not going to go outside here today and breathe in any more of the smoke, because it is absolutely killing me. Let's see here. Hello, PNSN network. There we go. This one seems to be stuck here for some reason. I better get rid of that real quick. I don't like leaving windows open, but I do got to check this back up here. Let's see, Mount Rainier. There we go. Now we're working. Okay, so these guys are recording 432 total earthquakes with the largest magnitude. There was 2.3s. Seismograph stations out there. Let's see what these guys are reporting. There's definitely still quite a bit of earthquake activity here. A couple ones, I'm sure, these larger quakes. And if you count every single one of these smaller quakes as well, it's just continuing here. You know, we're going to take a look here at the GPS stations there across Mount Rainier to see if anything's changed. I don't believe it is, or I don't believe it has, but we are going to double check. And this seismograph station is offline. There is one pretty close down here across the southern flank area of the volcano. And still, no change. The last couple run times here still showing consistent activity with the years past. If this was inflating, we would know it. We would see these run times off the chart here, leaving this in the dust, but it's not. So this is still just an earthquake swarm, a big one. Who knows if this is the biggest ever, but this is a fairly new monitored volcano. I think since the 80s they just started monitoring it. So who knows what happened previous to that as far as earthquake swarms. But it's been over 1,000 years since it's erupted. But it is a decent swarm. And again, seismograph stations out there are pretty well cluttered with earthquake activity. I got to zoom in a little bit more here. Check out that seismograph station. Yeah, there's still it looks pretty much identical to the last couple days in terms of earthquake activity. So this has not died down whatsoever at all. Still a lot of earthquake activity. It'd be interesting to see how long this goes on. And if for some reason I thought this thing was going to pop or getting ready to, I would, myself, because I'm a geology guy, I would love to observe this, report and observe and report, so to speak, at a distance, at a safe distance, obviously. But I don't think we're anywhere near any type of eruption because we have not seen any GPS movement that would indicate magma coming up from below. Remember, the magma is about 5 to 6 miles or so or deeper underneath this area, and according to the geologist, it's only 30% molten. All right, so there's the earthquakes here over the last. I forgot to show you guys this. I was going to show you this roughly about the same time as I was going to show you guys the history of the maps, or the history of the quakes out here. Here's a portion of the southern branch of the San Andreas fault, the 7.5 since the 1812 earthquake. And again, that's going to be 213 years, which is well outside the 140 to 160 year reoccurrence interval. All right. Let's check out the rest of the area here real quick, see if we got anything else going on aside from busy conditions here at Mount Rainier in Southern California. Nothing really major going on across Seattle area. We did have one earthquake on the Seattle fault yesterday, a 1.7. That's capable of a 7.5 directly underneath Seattle, and that hasn't had any major rupture in a couple thousands of years. Yellowstone National Park, they got a little swarm going on. Well, maybe a little swarm. Let's go see what's going on there at Yellowstone. Right here. All right. That little bitty swarm is visible across quite a few stations there, mainly around the Pitchstone Plateau. There's probably a good 10 or 15 earthquakes on here. So that number right there, 5 earthquakes, is well under the normal ones. But similar to Mount Rainier, it may be hard to pinpoint the exact location of every single one of these spikes, right? And determine the correct magnitude, location, and the depth of the earthquake. And then that's when they can put out the earthquake to the USGS map right here. A lot of times they don't cover all the ones that are happening. And there's a good 10 to 15. The ones that they are covering, I think, are these 5 right here. There was a 2.7, and then looks like a couple other smaller quakes in there. So that sits at the south area of Yellowstone caldera. The Yellowstone supervolcano caldera, much bigger, obviously, than Mount Rainier, is there in the darker black line. But there's no indication there of any inflation at all across this area. If anything, we're going down. Yeah, there was a little bit of uptick back in 2008, 2009 with some inflation, but then we went down, and then another inflation event in 2016 with the earthquake swarm, and then we went down, and here we are with really no big earthquake swarm and no inflation going on. Just periodic, got some a little bit of earthquake activity there occurring. That's at Yellowstone National Park there, northwestern Wyoming. Some activity out in Kansas as well. Just kind of busy out here against the North American plate. That tells me here to watch the plate boundary. We got the big crunch going on out here between the two major plates, the North American and Pacific plate, right? A lot going on here inland and a lot here across the center portion of the North American plate as well. The oil fields rocking and rolling with some magnitude 3.0 earthquakes there from yesterday. Bunch from today as well. The new Madrid seismic zone, some activity from yesterday and today as well. 3 earthquakes being reported in the magnitude 2 range. It's a slight increase there from a little bit of quietness. So again, that just means the North American plate here is on the move and is putting the crunch out here against the west coast. A little bit of swarming going on out there across the Aleutian Trench across this area, it looks like. Some deeper activity. One of the larger quakes of 4.5, 32 miles deep here into the Aleutian Trench. Mainland Alaska, not seeing too much activity there. Mostly ones going on up there. Canada, really nothing shown up there on the map as far as anything of noteworthy value. Now, across Japan here, that swarm did kick up last night with a number of 4s, even a 5-pointer. So let's go see what we got here from the Japan Meteorological Agency here. Where let's see here. Yeah, yesterday we had roughly about 5-6 o'clock. We were looking at 10 to 15 earthquakes, sometimes more each hour. It looks like that came to a halt maybe around 11 o'clock time period or so. Some activity in the early morning hours. Maybe 1 to 2 earthquakes per hour. But it looks like that intense earthquake swarm that kicked up for a short period last night has died off. But we're still seeing earthquake activity. At least, 1 to 2 per hour. Maybe 3. And there's a 4.2 in there just a couple hours ago. Goodness. So we still got that swarm going on there across that area of Japan. That's an area to watch here, the Nankai Trough. It's off of it here to the south along the plate, or into the subduction zone. Some newer activity down south here, which means that this area is starting to accumulate some further strain out there. We'll definitely watch that. Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, pretty quiet up north. Taiwan southward, pretty good cluster through the Philippines, but that's almost always happening there. And off the coast there, Sumatra, another 5-pointer. And up into the Burma area, Myanmar region, got some more 3s and 4s. New Zealand and this area around Papua New Guinea eastward is our quiet zone today. I might be quiet too. If I breathe in any more of that smoke outside, I don't know what's burning out there, but it is not good. I mean, it's a forest up north of me 100 miles or so, but it's coming down into the valley. And man, is it not good. So pretty quiet out here today, but that doesn't mean things won't pop. Quieter conditions here across the Middle American Trench into South America. The Atlantic Ocean pretty quiet. Pretty good cluster of quakes out there into the Mediterranean region. Got some 3s, even a 4-pointer it looks like. Out there around Greece following that plate boundary up north here. Nothing big for now. I think right now all eyes should be there on the Southern California area with this decent swarm going on. All right, let's check out the space weather activity. Got a little plasma filament here lifting off. That's probably going to be directed away from Earth, obviously, with that position up north here as well. A little bit of sea flare activity this morning. Currently sizzling with a C1.4. We do have a couple different sunspots here that I'm watching. This area being primarily one of them. That's possible of some further M-flare activity. That's going to be, into the Earth-directed view here. more squared up here in a couple days. We got this one that's kind of keyed up out of the blue as well, and then another sunspot over here. I think the main one right now to watch, and you can see on the UV image here of the sun, it's going to be this bigger area, and also this one right here. I believe we got some C-flare activity stirring up off of that one, and that's going to be sunspot 4138. So a number of sunspots, including a newer one back over here. Quite active compared to about a week of really nothing going on. So yeah, I'd say we got some decent M-flare chances here coming up. I'll have to raise mine up a little bit. It looks like they've raised theirs up here to 50% chance for M-flare. X-flare has been bumped up to about 5%. That's probably reasonable. We do have a coronal hole here, but I'm really not all that impressed with it, folks. It's kind of closing up here a little bit, and it's not even Earth-directed. It's all pointed to the south of the Earth-Sun plane. Not a big deal whatsoever. I don't see anything going on in terms of any major solar storms from that coronal hole. It's not even worth noting. The Space Weather Prediction Center hasn't even covered anything as far as any aurora events coming up. Nothing. All right, let's take a look here at the next close approach, 5 close approach asteroids here. See if anything is getting close to the planet. Everything looks pretty safe. That one's good and safe. It's a 1,200-foot asteroid, stadium size. We don't want that anywhere near the planet. That will definitely hit the ground. Almost 4 million miles away, so pretty safe out there. Current day 1 for severe weather outlook looks like we got a 10% area of tornado activity around Iowa here. A 5% and a 2% surrounding that, but it looks like dynamics here within this zone that includes some cities down there, Davenport. Just a little small area, but watch that. It could stir up some spitting water vapor today. Looks like some wind, a little bit of hail threat, but main threat's going to be wind and some tornado potential today. Excuse me. It is just... kind of feels like I have something stuck in my throat, but I really don't. I don't need to see those news. Not interested in all that. All right, let's see what else do we have to cover out here. Just a real quick glance here at Southern California once again. Last earthquake of 1.1. That's that one up north here. Trying to think. The closest station here around this area is going to be the Anza station right here. It's got some lines on it there. It looks like some type of technical interference there, outside interference. Those are not quakes, but I'll watch that. And that sits kind of back over here across this area. Either way, any earthquakes that are above 2.0 should show up on that station. We'll just go ahead and watch this today and see how it plays out, because that's a lot of earthquake activity here, folks, in the last 24 hours, and most of that stirring up this morning and up to the current hour. Just about 100 earthquakes here, including, as I noted, 4.3, 3.7, 3.4, 3.1. That's a lot of earthquake activity in a short amount of time period. Remember these numbers here, folks. Numbers don't lie. Time goes on, right? And complacency comes along with time. Just don't be complacent out there. Make sure you have an earthquake plan. These are big numbers that, that are in the past. And we continue to accumulate years onto these times since the last big earthquake. And it's coming. I'll catch you guys out here a little bit later unless something major happens. I'll be closely monitoring this swarm down there in Southern California throughout the afternoon. I'm not going to go outside because it's just too darn smoky. Have a good one. Stay safe out there.